my god! Oh my god! This is why I love this show. Okay, so today, guys, we are back with another episode of Punt or No Punt. And today I am delighted to welcome my friend, are we friends? And stream team member, KomodoDragonJesus. Komodo, how you doing?
Hey, what's up, BC? I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks a lot for coming on. And there might be a few people that don't know who you are, Komodo. It'll be obvious from just looking at you that you've been around for a while. But for those that haven't seen your stream or your content before, would you like to introduce yourself? Let us know where we can find you before we begin.
Yes, sure. So I'm KomodoDragonJesus, 888 Poker stream team member. I stream on Twitch on the channel with the same name. And I'm a cash pro. Been doing this for, let's say, like 6 years now. Time flies.
Excellent. And you've also got a YouTube channel. All the links to Komodo's stuff will be down below. And I like having Komodo on, guys, because we're very, very similar poker players, both extremely measured and unemotional. If you actually watch Komodo's stream, it's a very, very relaxing experience. In all seriousness, the antithesis of watching my stream. So if you ever just want to like chill with a cup of coffee and watch poker, I thoroughly recommend that you check out Komodo's stream. So I'll leave that link in the description below. But today, Komodo, we're playing Punt or No Punt. Are you excited?
Very.
So for the rules, in case you're new and you haven't seen this before and you're just here for Komodo, the contestant, today's Komodo, will bring on 5 hands. I will decide whether or not they're a punt or no punt. And a quick disclaimer, I am not as good at the game as KomodoDragonJesus. That will become evident as we go through the show. But I am still going to make the decisions whether it's punt or no punt because it is indeed my show. Komodo, are you happy that the integrity of the game has not been violated? I haven't seen any of these 5 hands before today.
Sure, yeah.
Excellent. That's good enough for me. without further ado, we do have ace deuce of diamonds and $500 in front of us. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Let's do this. Okay, in our first hand, we have ace deuce of diamonds. We are on GG. We've got a little mix of GG and 8-8 poker today. Should be fun. Obviously, no names on GG. Ace deuce of diamonds on the button and playing 500L. What are your main games, Komodo, just before we begin?
Lots of 200, 400, and 500.
Fair enough.
So this is the top stakes right here.
This is the big dog for you, is it? We're going to get an open, which I like, and a defend from the big blind, which is completely reasonable. And we see a deuce 5-7 flop. And personally using slightly larger bets and checks here, what are your thoughts on the strategy for this flop?
I'm honestly not that picky. Big bets are great. There's lots of guys out there who don't really check raise much, though. Overfold a lot of flops, too. So there's a lot of situations where I might just want to go tons of small bets anyways. Is
this one of those situations, or do you think you're just checking this hand?
Oh, no. I have to remember what this hand was.
You don't have to remember. You can just talk about it as if you are seeing it for the first time, if you prefer.
I think small bets are cool here.
Okay.
Just bet small. We got like the diamond combo, so we get floated by like 100 different ace highs that we all have dominated. Yeah, bets are cool.
Okay, we're going to go for bet. And we're going to go for small bet. And we're going to get raised. So you said that you weren't expecting a lot of check raise, and that's why you didn't mind betting small. I guess we have been somewhat punished here. Probably considering the volume of straight draws that are available, you're not going to be folding your hand just yet, but it is going to get a little bit uncomfortable. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have a pair, so pairs don't usually go anywhere against check raises. And yeah, there's lots of straight draws out there. Even if he has, something reasonably good here, this is a board on which, villain can just check raise a 7. It's not like he's super polar with, 2 pair sets, stuff like that.
Okay.
There's lots of stuff that can check raise here.
So definitely not folding just yet, but obviously there is going to be a lot of turn situations that are largely uncomfortable for us. But we're prepared for them because we're Komodo. Queen of clubs, and we see pot. I guess this is about 2E-ish. So what are your thoughts now? Because obviously this is getting a little bit dicey. And theoretically, we probably just want to let this go, no?
I mean, so, okay, now he's taking a bit more of a polar strategy. He's not going to have a random 7. It's probably not going to have too many queens. So I think most of his value range is just going to be things like 2 pair and sets at this point. And, I mean, having a deuce does a good job at blocking some sets. Maybe blocking some 5 deuce suited.
5 deuce suited, do you expect to defend all the time, yeah?
At least once in a while, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so having a deuce, obviously deuce is the main hand that we're happy to be blocking. Are there other hands that you would just, like, is ace 5 just markedly better here, or is it just like a little bit whatever, deuce or a 5 doesn't really make much difference, because obviously if you do have a 5, you're going to be blocking a few more 2 pairs, I imagine. Or do you just think this is just going to be overdone by big blind?
I'm not sure if it's going to be overdone. I do think the 5's just plain going to be better, because then we do get to block a few more 2-pair combos. With ace deuce, I'm not expecting villain to have a 7 deuce, and if he does, well, congrats to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, 5 would be better, a 7 would be great too, but deuce is still pretty good.
Okay. So any thoughts to letting this go on the turn, or are you just pretty sticky in these spots overall?
I mean, I think this is just a reasonable continue.
Okay.
And if anything, it seems like even, more of a reasonable continue than something like, say, pocket 9s.
Yeah.
Just the blocker effect is better. If I happen to be behind, I potentially have more outs.
Yeah.
Depending on exactly what we're up against.
We could be extremely dead. This is one of the problems that we have. We do nonetheless call, as it sounds like we're going to do. And the river is the king of hearts. So pretty much everything that you've said on flop and turn is still completely true. And they do go all in for a remaining $345. Is it a matter of once you've called the turn, you're kind of on this river, like nothing's particularly changed? I can't think of anything that really has changed here that's likely to have changed. Maybe something weird like King 5 of Spades, that seems insane, so probably not that even. Do you think that it's just a card that once you've called the turn, you're going to just call river? Or do you think that there are people that will barrel this turn and then give up this river with something like 8-6 or the like, or 6-4 suited?
Well, there's definitely going to be give-ups. Ones that come to mind, check raise flop with backdoor club draw, barrel the turn, and then, typically missed flush draws make for really bad triple barrels. So, give up with some stuff like that. If we're looking at something like 4-6 of hearts, 8-6, that type of stuff, I think it's completely reasonable for those to just barrel off. And because the king on the river, it's pretty close to just a blank. It seemed like a neat spot.
Yeah, so do you expect ever to lose to a bluff here? I don't think we do, right? Like there's no chance he has just like 5-4, is there?
That would be a bit of nonsense.
Yeah, fair enough. Not pocket 3s, nothing like that. Just checking for any like particular reason why we might want to do this. The reason why I'm actually quite happy, I'm not happy calling, is that I think that the natural bluffing candidates from flop that barrel turn are going to be hands on the river that they're like, well, I'm here with, for example, 9 high, I'm here with 6 high, I'm here with 8 high. And people have a really hard time regulating those because they've got 8 high. Do you know what I mean? Whereas theoretically, you're probably not allowed to just completely go for it with all those hands. Not to mention the fact that obviously, we would rather have a 5, but not to mention the fact that we obviously do block 1-2 pair. We do block some significant amount of sets. And that means we're pretty much looking at 5-7, which is still good enough to go for it for certain, and pocket 5s and pocket 7s. That's not a lot of hands. So if they do have all their like offsuit 9-8 as well, maybe, or offsuit 8-6, does that defend? I'm hazy with my big blind ranges, to say the least.
Don't think it should, but that doesn't necessarily stop people.
Yeah. I think that therefore probably means that overall this is likely to be overbluffed. Would you agree?
So I don't know if it's actually overbluffed, but I'm just kind of thinking about it in the way that it's very easy to get carried away. It's if you don't, regulate, what you're actually firing on the river, you can massively overbluff this spot.
Yeah, I agree.
There's a lot of spots out there where, maybe a bunch of draws get there and you're not left with that many bluffs. Maybe it's hard to overbluff. I don't think this is one of those. Plus, pocket 7s, we expect them to 3-bet a little bit pre. And we got pocket 5s, deuces, and the few 2 pairs. Like that's not a ton of combos to balance out those bluffs either.
Yeah, and considering obviously we need to win considerably less than half the time here in order to be profitably calling. And we're looking at, depending on how much offsuit rubbish they're throwing in, like 9-8 off for sure is something I'm hoping is going to be in there. This is probably just winning money, I would imagine. So I'm okay with calling here if you do call, and therefore my verdict for the first hand Komodo would be no punt. Is that pleasing?
Right on. Yeah, happy. I'm winning.
Yeah, you are winning. That doesn't mean you'll be winning by the end. Let's see if we win any money, because we could, of course, call here and just be shown Queen 7. If we are shown Queen 7, that's completely fine. Like, that's not something that we were... Obviously, that's something that's very reasonable to see in 7-5 and 7s and 5s. But, like, we're looking to see like how good our call is in terms of, like, maybe some 8-6 offsuit would be amazing to see. And if there's this in there as well, that's even... We didn't even say stuff like Ace 3, Ace 4, 8. This has to be way overdone, right? massively.
I mean, if you throw in those offsuit combos, it's a lot of combos. He also blasted off with the ace of clubs
I was about to say.
which doesn't seem right to me.
Because you need to fold an ace of clubs here. A lot of the time, your main folds are going to come from ace of clubs, right? A lot of them.
I mean, that's going to be a lot of my air hands, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we're definitely in the same ballpark here, that we bet small. He was like, fuck you, you're not allowed to do that. And you were like, I'll do whatever I want. And then you just called down and won. So I think for sure this one's completely fine. And you've taken a 1-0 lead. That doesn't mean you're going to maintain the lead. And we are going to have to take hand number 2. Should we see what we've got?
Let's do it.
Let's go. Okay, we have some home territory for hand number 2. This is 200 snap on our home of A-State Poker. How are you finding the games in A-State Poker so far? Obviously, you've been part of the stream team as of this year.
They're a lot of fun. This one was actually a bit of a reg battle.
Yeah.
Mucha Cherry and I were just, I don't know, I feel like going at it for a couple of hours
Nice.
this time. And it's nice to get those games because I feel like on a lot of other sites, you don't necessarily get that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. It's good because the regs will start the 100s and 200s quite often. I haven't quite crested the 200 mark yet. I'm still battling at 100 and getting my ass handed to me, as you could probably imagine. But you are, probably doing quite well. And we are up against Cherry Wine here, who, well, it's probably important that we do mention that he is, I call them bum hunters. I don't know whether you'd call him a bum hunter, but he is in your games all the time.
I mean, he's reg battling 3-handed with me here, so maybe he's bum hunting me. I don't know. That's a definite.
It's just an affectionate name that I use for mine because it's anyone. I call that to anyone that's in my stream that's watching and also playing at the same time. So I usually like to think that makes a difference to how they're playing. I'm not sure exactly how much. Do you think that Cherry Wine's playing differently against you than others before we start this hand, or do you think he's just theoretically strong?
He's definitely playing different against me. I mean, he's watched a bunch of the stream. He's a great guy as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's in there like every day.
Okay.
We're having fun together.
Well, this is somewhat important to note before we start. We do open Queen Jack offsuit, which is obviously totally reasonable, and Cherry Wine defends. And we see a pretty good board for us. Lots of nut advantage. We like nut advantage. Bet sizing. Okay, my blind versus blind is utterly horrific. What's your sizing scheme here? I can see everything being quite good.
Being polar and using some pretty big bets, I think, is kind of the default. Mm-hmm. But like kind of, I said last time, I'm not necessarily picky. And if you approach this board and you just like toss in 1/3 a bunch, it works. How can I possibly argue with that? But
against a guy like this, maybe we want to be the large bet scheme, and we are going to be doing that, which I think this is really, really good. Obviously, we have a massive, massive advantage in ace, king, aces, kings, eights, king 8 even, because they'll 3-bet that. So like a huge, huge board for us, basically. And they're struggling pretty desperately in general on this board. So a big fan. We do get call. This is not completely unheard of that we're going to see call here. But you will get a lot of folds, obviously. Cherry Wine's going to be defending adequately, I imagine. Queen of Hearts on the turn. Any devious intentions here? How do you feel about his range after he calls a very large bet? How do you feel about continuing to bet this hand? Is there any worth in like starting to show this down? Or is this something you're just going to go with, as it were?
So, after the large flop bet, he's not going to have a lot of trash.
Yeah.
He's going to have good connection with the board. Unfortunately, on this queen, sometimes that means nut straights. Sometimes it means like ace queen offsuits for 2 pairs. He's going to have like some backdoor flush draw stuff on the flop, which luckily has whiffed. And it's also just a really nice spot for me. I go for the overbet on the flop, repping the polar range. If you think about, what kind of bluffs might want to do that, quite a few of them are actually going to connect with this queen as well. So I'm a fan of this turn card.
Okay. So it sounds like we're going to barrel. It's one of those spots where like you looks like I've hit a pair, maybe I'll start showing down. But obviously like the better players are going to recognize that once you bet big and you get called, you're probably not ahead that often here. And it actually does, your hand does a pretty damn good job of removing value overall. Do you think they just not fold Jack? Are you supposed to just always call Jack 10 every single combo, no club as well in their shoes on flop versus overbet?
I think so.
Yeah.
Jack 10 suited are going to be 3-bet a bunch. So, it's not every single combo isn't in range to begin with. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't really think we see those folds.
We do go for a slightly smaller than we're sizing down basically on turn. What are your thoughts behind sizing down here?
So villain has a pretty tight range getting to the turn. The queen connects with that. I want to make sure that I'm keeping his range, I'll say, wide-ish, because there's, potentially a lot of ugly rivers.
Yeah.
And if we get to this turn spot, we toss in, say, another overbet, then he just gets to continue with a really tight range.
Yeah.
And while, I'm still doing fine against that, if we think about the fact, he might have like 12 combos of Jack 10, he'll have like some sets of 8s, then I would just prefer to keep his range a little bit wider.
And get you more folds on river. So like you think he's just going to fold something like A7 versus overbet and he'll probably stick around versus 2/3?
At least sometimes.
Yeah. He does stick around. He's very sticky. He's cherry wine, to be fair.
I mean, this hand wouldn't be here if he folded.
Ace of clubs river. So this is really interesting, this river. Have you got more than one sizing? Are you blocking and overbetting here? What are your thoughts about how the ace of clubs affects your sizing scheme, and how do you think it interacts with his range? Because I'm a bit nervous.
Yeah, it's a bit of a dicey spot. Possible full houses now the flush comes in. I don't know if there's much room for really thin value here for
Right.
block sizes.
Sure.
So the way I'm kind of approaching this is, from the flop, repping a very strong range, lots of 2-pair sets, big flush draws, stuff like that. And so this ace just kind of hits a lot of it. And I don't think I want to be blocking too much with the nut portion of my range when we're less than 1.5 times pot effective.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm probably just going to be playing like ship or check here.
That seems to make a lot of sense. You mentioned ace queen in their range. Like, I don't think I've ever flatted ace queen blind versus blind. I'm sure that I'm supposed to, but how often do you think people are actually doing that? Because I can't remember the last time I saw a showdown in a single raise pot blind versus blind with someone ace queen in the big blind. Because that kind of matters here, right? Because our removal is not amazing, I don't think. Like, the queen doesn't really seem to do much apart from block queen x of clubs.
So technically you're supposed to flat some ace queen offsuits.
Yeah.
Depends a little bit on the pre-flop sizes you put in, whether or not small blind has, limp range or something. But I want to say, flatting ace queen offsuit maybe like a quarter of the time, a third of the time. So they should be in there.
Do you expect to get folds from Jack 10 against this guy? Do you expect to get folds from flushes? Or do you think he's going to be only calling like ace 8 pocket? He has pocket 8s, I guess, sometimes. He obviously is going to have to find a few more calls. Like, what do you like about your hand in particular to follow through, as opposed to something else? Or like, what else would your bluffs look like if you could choose one?
I think my bluffs would pretty much always include either a club or maybe an 8.
An 8, yeah.
Though overbet and then bet turn with an 8, I don't actually think I'm going to be doing that much, unless like maybe a Jack 8.
Yeah. Jack 8
probably wouldn't be too spewy.
I mean, having an 8 is pretty reasonable, right? Because you're going to block a lot of their 2 pairs with an 8.
Yeah. So put yourself in his shoes. You're in this spot. If you face a barrel, are you calling your Jack 10s? Are you calling your flushes?
Here's the right. So I think against population, you're probably right. Like, I don't. Obviously, it's a horrible spot on the face of it. But like, if I'm blind versus blind against quote unquote a bum hunter, and I know they're in the chat, and there's a lot of like maybe dick swinging going about, and everyone wants to get one over on each other, do I really want to shove this spot? The answer is almost certainly no for me. And I guess that's obviously what we're doing. So,
has a viewer ever folded to you in your entire life?
Honestly, I mean, maybe I'm biased, obviously, towards the horrendous times that for me, but I do not get folds, and I don't know, man. Like, I am so loath to bluff this spot against viewers that I'm almost certainly going to have to punt this just off of my own like nightmares, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Do you like this in retrospect, or do you think Cherry Vine's calling too much here for you to do this? Cherry
does like to click call against me quite a bit.
Okay.
But if I'm remembering right, this was a little bit ago when, our dynamic hadn't quite developed quite as much.
Okay.
So at the time of this hand, I don't remember exactly when it was, but I clearly thought I could get some folds.
Yeah. Sounds like excuses to me. I'm going with punt. We're going to make it 1-1. It doesn't mean that we don't get it through. And if we don't get it through, we are not looking to get called by some absolute dust nugget that makes us feel like shit, because that is quite often what happens to me. I don't know if you've got any experience with that. Let's find out if you do. Okay. So I'm not sure exactly where this leaves us, but we are representing a stronger hand than this, are we not? Is this not a bluff catcher exclusively?
It is.
Yeah. So for that reason, I'm happy with my. Obviously, no, we're not being results oriented, which is why I always give my result before we see the hands. But this is the kind of shit I'm worried about. The big blind never folding a flush and just like sticking it to me and then going in chat and saying, haha, fuck you, man. This is what I try to avoid at all possibilities.
So I looked this hand up in a solver after playing it, and solver seems to like my line.
That doesn't...
From his point of view, I think like the 10-4 is about a 50-50 mix call fold.
Yeah, it's just the bluff catcher at this point, which makes sense. And if he's on a bluff catcher and he thinks "fuck you for science," I'm watching the stream, this would be funny. Then I'm thinking it leans us a little bit more towards let's not do this. So that's why I went for punt. I know it seems harsh, and this is pretty fruity, and I'm excited about the rest of the hands as a result. But yeah, my extensive experience with bum hunters would let me. I would probably give this up somewhere. But I like the heart and commitment to the game. But it does mean it's 1-1, Komodo, which means with 3 hands left, we've basically got a best of 3. Are you ready to take hand number 3?
Let's do it.
Let's go. So on our third hand, Komodo, we're back on GG. We've got ace king. It's a good hand. We're under the gun and we're making it $4. We'll leave that alone. $14 from an unknown. Do you have any idea who this is? Is it anything worth mentioning before we do what we're going to do?
Yeah, he's a reg.
Okay.
We've had, I don't know, maybe a bit of history, but nothing too major.
Okay. And a bit of both here, I imagine. I guess you're just going to be mixing. And this time we're going to call. Seems good?
Seems good, yeah.
4-8-5. 2 diamonds. Any little donkey donks here?
Yeah, on these like triple low connected boards, out of position gets to donk a little bit.
Yep. And how do you feel about your hand in placing that into the donkey range? And how often are you going to be donking like globally?
Okay, so here's the thing. I probably donk a little bit more than I should.
That's okay.
Because not necessarily, I think donking is going to be better in a vacuum, but I think a lot of players don't know how to play well against the donks.
That's a huge deal, yeah.
So I'm going to put them in a position where they're making more mistakes.
And you're making less because you're comfortable with the line because you do it a lot, right?
Yeah.
So what we're basically saying is you're donking and your sizing is going to be small, I imagine.
Oh, yeah, always.
Yeah. So we are going to donk small. I don't have a problem with this. So far I'm on board. We do get raised, and I suppose with King of Diamonds, 2 overcards, there really isn't much to do but call. Is there?
I mean, I guess you could think about re-raising.
We certainly can't fold.
I don't think I can fold it. It's, 2 high cards, and his raise wasn't actually that big.
Yeah, it's quite
getting
small.
good pot odds here.
Yeah.
So yeah, went with the call.
I'm happy with call as well. So far, completely fine. Deuce of Spades turn is very interesting. It certainly doesn't change enough for us to be donking again, so we are going to check. And they are going to wager more money. God, now this is pretty rough now. What are your thoughts about how rough this is?
It's not a great spot. Well, I mean, clearly the hand isn't going to end here.
Yeah.
So it's a situation where, I mean, I'm still ahead of his bluffs. I'm blocking maybe not top value, not blocking his sets as straights, but, some of the better pairs he could have here. And even if he has something, like queens, jacks, we've got a few outs.
Yeah, we have the gut shot as well.
That too.
I mean, I personally would just flick this in the muck, but I can definitely see. I mean, I imagine theoretically we're probably not supposed to do that. It might be quite close. The King of Diamonds is now unideal. But do you have designs on calling and then donk shoving a diamond, for example? Is that something you're thinking about here when you're deciding whether to call or not?
There might be a few ideas like that.
Okay.
I didn't actually think the diamond was all that bad. He should be kind of concerned about getting check shoved on.
Yeah.
So, I don't even think I'm really blocking all that many flush draws. And, I mean, if that's the case, then repping a diamond might be an interesting idea.
Okay. We do call, which I think is cuspy as fuck, but probably okay. And the river hath not improved us. And again, no donking. So we check.
Yeah, donking here would be weird.
So we check and they go all in. And it's punt or no punt. So obviously everyone already knows what we're going to do. Convince me. Give us your overall theory about this spot. What kind of hands you're expecting to raise versus donk and follow through. I'm just to give you a caveat. I'm particularly concerned about this card it being underbluffed. And there being a multitude of value. Some of which you block. But I will let you spiel away.
Yeah, about that. When he goes for the raise, initially, obviously some draws, expecting that. Also just a bunch of high cards. Things like, queen jacks and jack tens I thought were kind of cool from his point of view, while I'm going to have, some very nutty stuff that connects with his board. Otherwise, the top of my range is going to be things like pocket queens, pocket jacks. So just high cards that block those seem like they'd make interesting barrels.
Yeah.
In terms of he's going to have diamond draws. I don't know if this is really optimistic, but I thought the king of diamonds wouldn't really matter that much, because if he bets say a king 10 of diamonds on turn and he just gets check shoved on, that is brutal.
Yeah.
That is an absolutely brutal spot. So I kind of expected a lot of those to check back. I do remember in this hand, I thought he bet turn really, really quickly, which at the time I thought, if he's got something really good, maybe he takes a moment to think about it, or maybe he even just pauses to make it seem like he's thinking about it. And we're just kind of in this river situation where we still beat all his bluffs, and
that's true.
Yeah.
So we do have a bluff catcher, and there's a few things I'm concerned about. I'm sure you share the concerns. I know you say, oh yeah, queen jack, queen 10 would be quite, fruity to go with. Problem is, is this not? It's not just completely bonkers. Raise in position, barrel turn with absolute airball equity. Apart from the overcards, do you think the overcards are enough for you to expect people to do that often? And then when they arrive on the 4 of clubs, I guess you do get here with sevens and sixes and 6-5. A lot, and 8x. Do you think that nudges them into convincing themselves that you have enough in your range to fold, even though this river is so dead?
I think they have to take some bluffs. I mean, first off, they're just going to have jack high some of the time, and I don't think people check back jack high here ever.
Okay.
Even if they're not terribly optimistic about it, there's going to be some fold equity against me. Even, I'm going to have some flush draws. If I have an ace high flush draw, that's going to make up at least a few combos that they're going to get folds from. So people are going to try.
Would you rather have this or sixes or sevens if you were going to split between what makes a better call here? Because you're going to have both a lot.
I mean, I have a feeling sixes and sevens is just a strictly better hand.
Okay. Why is that? Because obviously with this hand, you do remove value pretty significantly. I'm not sure we do the same thing with sixes and sevens, and I think we beat the same amount of hands.
So with this, we block some aces and kings. 6-7 might block some 6-7 suiteds.
Yeah.
They're each going to have at least a little bit.
Yeah.
And if he's when this 4 runs out, all his value is so clean.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm going to be in an incredibly tough spot with 6s, 7s, with 8x, with 5x, just everything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely agree with you. The fact that your range is seemingly somewhat, we're not capped because obviously we have boats and stuff, but there's a lot of our range that's mudded here. Fuck. You just have aces and kings a lot, right? I mean, I don't know, man. I struggle to... I can't remember the last time I saw someone have queen 10 or queen jack here. I have a problem with that. And I also have a problem with the fucking 4 on the river, which just seems like a river that people... I mean, it'd have to be a very good reg for me to be able to believe that they'd... Because human-wise, I'm just no, I don't want to bluff this river. But I'm very bad. So...
But keep in mind, you are the host of Punt or No Punt. You've seen lots of crazy stuff.
I mean, it is on here. But I have seen most of the time on Punt or No Punt, I see people call here and they lose. I don't know if that's affecting my decision, but I am giving you a punt. I might have even folded the turn, but I think I might be a shit stain. So I'm willing to let that go. But I think the combination of all the factors together makes me not want to give this to you. But I just feel harsh, and I like how you're in the mix. You're certainly in the mix.
I mean, hey, you wanted interesting hands.
I did want interesting hands. I mean, this is certainly an interesting hand. I'm going to give you a punt. It's a harsh one, but I think overall I'm happy with it. Doesn't mean you're going to lose money, though. Let's have a look. If they've got queen 10, you're the best. Ace queen. Bro, ace queen is insane, no? Absolutely. Ace of diamonds queen? This is completely mental. This is absolutely mental. So, I mean, if they're doing this, if they're overdoing it this hard, then you're probably absolutely fine, but it's too late anyway for the game. Nice hand, man. Jesus, what is going on in these games? Every time I click, everyone's got the nuts. But you are 2-1 down. That's the main thing that's happened in this hand. $456 regardless. We are going to have to go and take hand number 4. And you do need the next 2 now, unfortunately for you, in order to win this. Are you confident?
We'll see how it goes.
Okay, let's take hand number 4. So we are back in both of our homes. Ace State poker. I've never played 500 on Ace State. I'm assuming these are obviously reg tables.
Yes.
And we have King Nine of Diamonds on the small blind, and we're playing against Argonavd. Who is Argonavd when they're at home? Do you know?
Just some reg.
Okay, reg.
I don't think I have a big history with him or anything.
Okay.
But yeah, he just reg.
Okay. Just reg is something I can work with. We get 3-bet. Yeah, I mean, we're not folding. Is it just call here? Pretty sure.
I think it's just call, yeah.
Because we don't want to get, like, we don't want to 4-bet this hand and then waste what considerable equity we have, because they do have some, like, King 7, King 8 off and stuff that we're just doing fantastically against, obviously. King 5-3, and we're obviously going to check, and they are going to check back. Do you think they're just using, like, because I think these boards, I mean, I'm way off most of the time, but these are like half pot, right? And check. There's no range betting here, theoretically.
You know, it always throws me off when I see somebody check this board back because, I mean, whether or not it's correct, you just see so much range betting.
Yeah. But they have so much rubbish, like they just can't. They have so much absolute crap, like Queen 8 offsuit, like 10-8, like Jack 4 and stuff like this. Like, how can they possibly range bet this hand? This board?
I mean, I got a bunch of crap too.
You do have a lot of crap.
Yeah.
It's a crap on crap fest, but it has gone check. And it's the 4 of spades on the turn, which, I mean, we're okay with. What are your thoughts of betting versus checking here? Weigh up the options for me.
I mean, we got top pair, villain checks back flop, betting seems like a really good option. I don't think our kicker necessarily matters that much.
Yeah.
Just the fact that, you know, a king beats, you know, a whole bunch of hands that like to check back, a whole bunch of pocket pairs. We can get called by ace highs.
6s, 7s.
Betting seems reasonable. You know, in the hope of being balanced, I don't think you should bet every single time.
Okay.
You know, you check some, you slow play some. So either option just seems good.
And what's your sizing here? Like, what's the worst hand you're going to bet? Probably a king, right? At least you want to have a king to bet here in terms of value.
Yeah, I'd be going maybe something like 2/3, 3/4, maybe an overbet.
Okay.
I don't really see the value in going for something like a block, especially, you know, if I expect villain to be checking back, you know, say a whole bunch of queens, jacks, 10s, then it doesn't make sense for me to toss out a block with, you know, pocket 8s.
Okay. I'm very happy with this. We do decide to check this time, which we've discussed is completely reasonable. And they go for a small bet in position here. Well, we've got, I guess, options. Calling being my favorite, but like I can see check raising being good. What do you think this is saying about their hand, this sizing?
I think they're saying they don't really want to give a free card to an ace high or a random hand with a 7 or a random hand with a 6.
Yeah.
They probably aren't repping too many nut hands.
Okay.
With the small size. So maybe something going for a little bit of thinner value and a little bit of protection.
Okay. Do you want to raise or call then, given those things? It sounds like you wouldn't mind raising.
I was kind of on the fence during the hand, but I just kind of went over it and just thinking, you know, villains probably very rarely has something like, you know, King Jack plus.
Yeah.
Raising seemed reasonable. And I mean, again, for balance, you know, calling's never going to be bad.
This is something I'm just never finding, but like when we're talking about it now, it makes a lot of sense. You make a lot of sense, Komodo. You make a lot of sense. I
try.
They call, you know, that's not necessarily overly concerning, but this will be one of the hands that we, like, depending on river, obviously, will be one of the hands that we're not really going to want to, like, shove, I guess. But, like, this river is really clean. Like, is this too thin to shove? Or, like, do you want to block? Like, what are you thinking? Like, because I've never been in this spot before because I never find raised turn. So, like, when I get here, I'm like, well, I don't know what I have. What is my hand? What is your hand?
Well, I mean, hey, we got top pair. What could possibly go wrong?
That is true. That's hard to make top pair.
I think there's a lot of considerations here. One of them is how often does villain have, you know, a better hand? And if the answer is never, then, you know, just shove all the time and, you know, life's great. You effectively have the nuts. There's some considerations, you know, there's missed flush draws, there's some missed straight draws. You know, villain can have something like an ace 6 that, you know, we check. He might want to bluff river. So this seems like a very reasonable bluff catcher as well. We got options. And for block bet's kind of interesting because, like, if we're going for block bet, we want to get called by pocket 9s, right? You know, just stuff like that, pocket 8s.
Yeah.
I mean, do you fold it to the raise?
I mean, I'm terrible, so maybe I'll be like, well, this is bullshit. I'm just going to fold. because people aren't finding this.
Okay, well, how about this? So let's just say he has a bunch of pocket pairs on turn. Say, queens through eights.
Yeah.
Like, full combos of all of them checking back on flop. If you bet turn and get check raise, are you folding every single one of them?
Oh, I guess not. Does that mean you want to shove then?
Well, the interesting question I think is is there going to be a huge distinction in his calling range whether I just shove or block? Like if I block here, I think he's snap calling like every pair.
Okay.
Because he should, right?
Yeah.
He's getting incredibly good pot odds. I can have some potential bluffs. If I shove, is he folding every single pair? Probably not. So there's going to be some sort of a gradient there, and you got to kind of just think about it and decide where you think your opponent will stand. If he's going to call all the pocket pairs against a shove, obviously make a shove. If he's going to fold them all, don't shove. And if he's going to, bluff a lot when checked too, then check.
Yeah. So without any specific, I mean, it's weird because usually on punt and no punt, I get to the river, I'm like, okay, this is clearly what's going to happen, and this is why it's here. I don't know whether you're going to shove, and whether that's going to be the punt and no punt, like, is this too thin, or like, what the hell are we doing? Or are you going to check and call, and then it's going to be like, fucking hell, we don't beat any value. Like, what's going on here? Is anyone ever going to bluff 3 diamonds? So it's fun. I like it. I want to see what's going on. We are going to shove for value, and if the punt or no punt is this too thin? I imagine. Or is this just like burning equity by not blocking or whatever? I like that you brought this on. That's what I like about punt and no punt. That people can bring on whatever hands they want, and we just have to make sense of it. This hand, I have fucking no idea. My instinct is that, I mean, it doesn't look like you're gonna. I think this is better than check, but is it better than block? I'm not sure.
If it's just, is it better than block? Does that necessarily, if block is better, does that necessarily make it a punt though?
I don't think it does. No, I think it's unlikely.
Can I skirt the rules here?
Yeah, my concern is that it just doesn't. Like, what are you bluffing? Like, what are you bluffing here? I don't know what it looks like. Like 6x of spades. Do you follow that through? That seems dicey as well because we want them to have spades and fold. Like, I don't know what your bluffs look like here. And I'm concerned that this is like, we are over bluffing to the point where this is just like, they're just going to fold way too often here. And then we might get called by like king queen, which they are allowed to have.
We're 100% getting called by king queen.
Well, no, I mean, they might have king queen. No, I think that's what I meant was they might have king queen, which obviously calls. Not like we might get called by king queen. I should rephrase. But yeah, I think, this is so tough. I don't think it can be a punt. I think I'm going to give it no punt just because I love the turn, and like, I think we have the best hand a lot. And when we have the best hand a lot, that should drive our sizing up. Exploitatively, do we want to use a block or check? I don't think check is good because I think they check back way too often. I'd probably rather block, but I can't say this being a punt. So I'm going to give you a no punt. But this is a wild hand, and I don't think I've ever seen anyone bring a hand like this on before, which I'm very appreciative of. You've committed yourself to the cause here. Now, I am worried, obviously, like I said, that we're not going to get called by the hands that you're hoping to get called by. We do get called, and they just have ace-4 offsuit. Why? I don't understand.
I have no explanation for that one.
I mean, if they're calling this is obviously completely printing, and you deserve your money and your no punt. My huge concern was that it wouldn't call enough after we check raise and we bang it in, because I just do not know what our bluffs look like. I think their play is an absolute giga punt, and I think yours is interesting, but fine. Is that fair?
I mean, hey, from his perspective, he blocks some straights. Yes, blocks some straights, blocks some sets.
I care a lot less about that than I do about the fact that your line is, I think I'm the bluffed, like pretty significantly. You might think that you're finding things here, but if you, for example, if you have all of your king 9 to a king 10, king jack, like, fuck me, you're going to have, I am struggling to find a bluff, and I'm not struggling to find value. So in those situations, I think that's why I'd prefer to block. But if you're going to get snapped off by this, fair play to you. It's 2-2, Komodo.
Yes.
You need the last one. Confidence levels?
I mean, I did save an interesting one for last.
We like that. I always, that's the only request I ever make. You can bring whatever hands on you want, but bring me something interesting last. So we are going to go and take a look at that. Komodo needs this to win punt, no punt. Let's go take hand number 5. Komodo's nervous. Cherry Wine's back, and we have ace king. And we need it. We need this one. Cherry Wine folds. Okay, so we've got a little bit of a different scenario. We're going to open the button.
Crisis averted.
Crisis averted, indeed. We are playing 200-0, but we're deep as shit. We're deep as fuck. We're not massively deep, but we have nearly 200 big blinds, which is significant. It makes a big difference, and it puts me out of my comfort zone, but certainly not out of yours. So at least we can talk about it. We get a small blind call. So first of all, I guess we should talk about who the hell is this, and what do you make of small blind call? Is it a product of who the big blind is, or do you think it's something that people are just doing and it's fine?
So Villain, I've seen him around the tables a bit. I want to say he seems kind of reggy, but does weird stuff.
Okay.
So probably not top reg. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. We don't apologize on this channel.
Yeah. Well, expect a few weird lines from him.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, that's noted. We are mega deep. SPR is monumental, and we're going off to a flop, which is Ace King 9. Now, I guess we should wonder whether pocket nines is in his calling range. I guess it maybe is. We certainly can't rule it out, but I would mainly expect 3-bet.
I'd expect if he's going to have a flatting range, then yeah, like pocket nines, a variety of mid pairs should probably be in there.
Obviously a phenomenal board for us, and I get confused because I don't play a lot of it versus small blind call. I'm not really sure how people are constructing their ranges, but obviously this is going to be like a fairly amazing board versus big blind. But versus small blind, I imagine it's different. Do you want to nod towards the differences there before we choose our size?
So his range is going to be a lot tighter. He's going to have a lot fewer trashy hands. That being said, the way that you play these kind of boards, I don't necessarily think it changes.
Okay.
So this is a board where we're going to have a nice nut advantage. I'm hoping, from his perspective, ace kings are getting 3-bet pre.
Yeah.
And, things like kings and aces. We're going to have a nut advantage, and it's not really a board on which much protection is required. So I think we just go with the polar big bets.
Yep. I'm a big fan, and we're going for that 1596 again, which we saw earlier. And oh my God, this is a spicy one already. We get raised. Now, people don't play a lot of raise against overbet in general. How unbelievably pocket nines is this? There's
probably a lot of pocket nines.
Right, okay. So if we move forward, we have to, in my mind, are we gonna, I think the only hands that will probably be bluffing here, I think he's literally got pocket nines, or he's got queen jack of clubs and jack ten of clubs and the like. I honestly don't think they're going to check. They can't check raise king 9 or ace 9. It's just fucking bonkers. So that is my read on this situation immediately. I don't know if that's reductive or if do you agree?
I mean, that seems like a pretty solid read.
Okay. Obviously, we can't fold because we're extremely deep and we have pretty much 4 clean outs to stack the shit out of him should he have pocket nines anyway. So we call, but I am displeased. I want it on the record. The 5 of clubs, I'm now fucking, I'm very, very unhappy. And they bet small, which I think is really good, right? Because if you're going to check raise versus overbet, and then, I mean, it's interesting because you're very deep and maybe he wants to build a slightly bigger pot to stack you in, which is weird. Maybe this is even more pocket nines than I thought. Maybe a flush a bit bigger. But I was going to say I like the small bet because everything he has is there. The whole shebang. Like, he doesn't have any non-good hands. They're all really good. What do you think?
I mean, hey, we got to give him credit for maybe the occasional bluff here and there.
Oh, do me a favor.
Don't ask me what I think he's bluffing.
Right.
But yeah, it's a rough turn.
Okay.
Luckily, the bet is small. Getting 4-1 here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we can't fold, but like, if I was displeased before, I'm now like completely and totally ready to just relinquish this on pretty much every river that doesn't give us a full house. I'm just putting it out there before we get to the river.
I think if he bets like 3/4 or something, I think it's a snap fold.
Okay, yeah. That's interesting. The river's the 7 of clubs. That is one of the most interesting rivers. If it had been a deuce of hearts that he shoved, I'd have been like, if you call him, man, I don't even want to be on your team anymore. He blocks. Oh my God. Okay, Komodo.
He's putting it together.
Okay, this has not gone the way I thought. To be honest, I'm actually relieved that it went this way because if this had been a deuce of hearts, he'd shoved and you'd called, I'd have just been ridiculing you for the last 5 minutes of this show. Instead, we don't have to do that. We have to talk about how insane you are. He blocks the river, and I'm going to let you say the things that I know that you're thinking because you're the guest. Go ahead.
So the main thing I'm thinking about is 2 things. One, how the heck does he have the king of clubs?
Yeah. King 10 of clubs, maybe, but like, does he block river?
It seems hard, right?
Yeah.
It seems hard for him to have that. And the other thing I'm thinking about is if I'm going to take a bluff in this spot, spoilers.
We knew.
What on earth am I gonna bluff? Because
yeah,
like I have a bunch of flushes. And then what? I'll have, my sets and my two pairs. I'm never getting here with like, ace queen, no club. That's just not happening.
Yeah.
So what bluff candidates are pocket nines, ace king, no club, pocket aces.
Mate, this is gross.
It's a weird spot.
Yeah, this is very strange.
But I also thought, okay, pocket kings with club, got a few combos of those. King high flush draws on the flop. Maybe not necessarily taking the overbet line a ton, but, going to be in there at least a bit. So, yeah, ace kings with club.
Yeah.
We have those. So, I don't know. I have a few nut combos.
Yeah, I mean, more importantly, what does his range look like here now? I don't think he'd block a pocket. I don't think he'd block a 9. I think he has a flush, probably. I can't rule out pocket 9s. But, like, my first thought here was, wow, this guy doesn't have the nuts. But, like,
I thought too.
Yeah. So you have to, like, this guy would have to, given that what we know about them, which we only alluded to a very small amount before the flop, they have to have check raised king X of clubs on flop versus overbet, and also now get to this river and block it rather than anything else. I think block with the king clubs here is good. I'm just not convinced that both of those two things are happening that often versus this player type. Would you think that's fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the guy who goes for the check raise on flop is probably just going for the big bet.
Yeah.
If against overbets on the flop, typically the proper response is just, flat a bunch of your range, let the guy repping the huge polar range barrel. So if you're already kind of taking that initiative, saying, I've got something nice here, they're probably just going with it.
Yeah. Say we're content with what we've broken down so far. Say that we are saying that they are capped at queen of clubs, for example, maybe the jack of clubs. I think that those are probably the main hands they have. They have jack high flush, queen high flush, pretty much. I would say pretty much all the time. That's fair. Given what we know about the opponent, and given the golden rule, I don't know if you guys have seen the last punt I punt with Big Steeler. One of the golden rules that I live by: don't try to make a potentially weaker player fold a good hand. And in their mind, a flush is a good hand. Queen of clubs, good hand. Also, there's fish do get entitlement tilt. I don't know if this is a fish or it's a weak reg. Entitlement tilt from the fact that they had a really good hand on flop, they turned an even better one, and now it's really not very good. And they're like, fuck, I don't have a good hand anymore, but I still have a flush, kind of cool. So it's not enough that we think that they're capped, probably. They also have to fold. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a bit tough. But I mean, think about it the other way. You have the king of clubs here, you go for a jam. Do you think you're getting called every single time?
I'd be fairly hopeful.
Okay. I very rarely go into a spot thinking I'm getting called every single time.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So if that's true, and you literally can't find any bluffs from anywhere, apart from pretty much this.
Yeah, how can I possibly be bluffing?
Yeah, how can you possibly be bluffing? Mate, I think I'm going to have to give this to you. Not just because of the road this hand led me down. I was so excited to rip the shit out of you, and then it became this genius move. Like, finding this bluff, and pretty much we having a good idea what this guy's range is. I am concerned, but there is a lot left to call. So I think there's just enough reasons to let you have this. And it's a fucking sensational... Let's put the money in. It's a sensational hand for punt or no punt. It's well worthy of the 5th spot, and I'm super glad that you brought it on. No punt, Komodo. So before we see what happens, you have won. 2 in a row, yes. People have won, guys. Don't say I never, last time there was a 3-1, and then, he won 3-2. This time we just have a clean 3-2 victory. Deserved, I would say. And you could have won one of the other ones as well, easily. This doesn't mean that you don't get called, obviously. If we get called by Jack 10 or Queen X of clubs, I think we can safely say in retrospect that, I mean, we didn't have the benefit of hindsight when we see his hand, but if he has a King X of clubs, that's also, even though he has the nuts, and obviously we never expect him to fold that, our assumptions for this hand are based off the fact that we think King X of clubs is drastically reduced. So those are the disclaimers before we see the river. And he has... Oh my God! Oh my God! This is why I love this show, because I never look at the hands beforehand. This is absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. Right, so we do need to spend some time. We have spent a long time on this hand so far, but we do need to spend some time breaking this down about how disastrous our decision to bluff is. I love the fact that I gave this to you and this is his hand. So this is not just entitlement tilt with a flush. By the way, we weren't getting a fold with a flush. This is huge entitlement tilt. I can't believe I flopped a set against probably ace king and I'm going to lose. Like, we have picked the wrong opponent. Talk to me, Komodo.
Yeah. Yes, we have.
Oh God, this is ridiculous. Talk to us about how you felt when you got called here. Throw the analysis out of the way because we can see what's happened here. We've talked about it. I wondered whether he would even block this, let alone block call it. This is phenomenal.
It hurt, and this was actually done live on stream.
Oh, amazing.
So also lots and lots of embarrassment.
Yeah. I mean, you can hold your head high, I think, but like, this is what I mean about if you're not sure who someone is, I just try to lean on the fact like all these tendencies that I was talking about, I really am scared about them just going, you know what, fuck you. I flopped this hand. I can't let it go kind of thing. But again, like if you'd seen their hand, you'd have shoved. So it's like, it's so fucked up. It's so fucked up. Anyway, I don't know what to say anymore. This is a great hand, and thank you for bringing it on. You've won 3-2, and you deserve it, I have to say.
Yes.
Let's quickly wrap up with an outro before we say goodbye. So that was Punt or No Punt with KomodoDragonJesus, and maybe, honestly, one of my favorite hands I've ever had on the show, genuinely, because this took me down like 4 different rabbit holes, and I loved every single street. I absolutely loved it. And honestly, a lot of the hands, I had no idea where they were going to end up, which is what I love about this show. People can bring whatever they want on. And you have deservedly won, Komodo. A great showing. In true Punt or No Punt fashion, we are going to, deservedly so, throw a big pile of chips over to Philodinho, who has been the greatest block call of all time for 200 big blinds. It's so class. You have won. Have you had a good time?
I've had a great time, man.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
That's the main thing. That's the main thing.
And for anybody watching, can I please just go ahead and say, after this, I never plan on bluffing again. So... adjust accordingly.
Just remember that. Unfortunately, your hands are streamed, so everyone's gonna know you're full of shit after like 10 minutes. Yeah. But anyway, a great selection of hands, and it was a real good time having you on, man. I really appreciate you making the time out of your schedule to make this happen. So awesome. And yeah, hope to have you on again in the future at some point.
It's been a blast, man. Thanks so much for having me on.
No worries. And if you have enjoyed it, guys, and you want to see more episodes of Punt or No Punt, please do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and make sure that you go and check out the drastic punts going on over at KomodoDragonJesus Twitch channel, which will be in the description below. Until then, I will see you on the next one. All the best.